Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, which for a week I think, DJ, we should rebrand the Mohammad Siraj Show. How you doing, DJ? Congratulations. Asia Cup champions 2023, back-to-back ODI champions. You and I decided to don the India jerseys. Pretty great start to Sunday for me. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm well, man. I am well. It's been a while since we won a multilateral tournament, right? So,
I
um,
mean, the last ODI Asia Cup would be it, right? I think that was 2018.
wow,
That's got to
wow.
be the last time. I can't remember. I mean,
So like 5 years ago, we won the
5 years.
T21 when Kedar ran a leg by on one leg.
That's
Um,
Nidahas, right? I
no,
guess.
there was a 2020 Asia Cup as well with that Rohit captained. But yeah, it's been a long time since we've won a ODI multilateral tournament. So, as you guys know, any chance to bring out the India cricket jerseys that we have collected over the years, we love to take it on the podcast. So, if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a like, give us a share, and drop us a comment. We're doing this live, so good fun. Good
There
fun.
you go. Yeah, I mean, this is real time, right? It's a little bit earlier than we normally. By the way, I'm pretty sure the Kedar Jadhav Asia Cup win under Rohit Sharma's captaincy was 2018, is what I'm talking about.
Oh my God,
So,
is
so
that
it's
right?
been 5 years. Yeah, it's before we started, or was it before
Oh,
we started this
no, it
podcast,
was
or just
after we
after? We
started.
were we
Just
we
after we
we,
started.
we anyway. We're getting old, DJ. What a big win, man! But I don't know how to feel. I'm a little conflicted. By the time we're recording this for me, it's like 8:30 in the morning. This was my plan for the day. Like the ODI should have run till about I don't know 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon my time. It was my Sunday morning plan. Now I got to figure out something to do for the rest of my day. But with good cause. Pretty exciting. I mean, I I don't know how you don't know how to feel about when you have these massive one-sided routes, right? 50 all out at home. Fans have paid big money to travel and fight the rain, and reserve days were booked and all that, and then 50 all out and chased it down in what 6 or 7 overs or something. I mean, it's a bit of a conflicted feeling as a fan of the game, but a thrilling feeling, obviously, as a Team India fan, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Sri Lanka innings, I don't know in terms of how many minutes it lasted, but there was a 1 hour rain delay. So I wonder whether the 50 all out was more than or less than an hour's delay. But I mean, conflicting feelings, yes. But imagine what Washington Sundar is going through. He gets a game, comes to field. It's like that classic gully cricket moment where he basically got picked last, didn't bat, didn't bowl, only fielded and went home.
I mean, the picture of Shahnawaz Dahani was starting to go viral, where he showed up in Sri Lanka and then, like, basically arrived right as Pakistan got knocked out, right? And we were thinking, oh, that's pretty sad. There's a picture of him at the airport, and then has to basically go straight back. Now you're thinking, Washi flew in, got a game, so this will register as an ODI match for him. But I was looking through the scorecard. Do we know if he took a catch or a run out or anything of significance? I didn't see any.
I don't
So
think he did anything.
so no batting, no bowling. I'm assuming hopefully 1 point in the innings the ball at least went to him, so he got to touch it. But I mean, that's pretty disappointing. But anyway, let's get past the negatives. Let's talk about the positives, man. 50 all out, right? Let me start before we talk about Mohammad Siraj with the fact that every ball that Jasprit Bumrah bowls early on just feels like he's one ball away from taking a wicket. And of course, he got Kusal Pereira out on the third ball of the match, right? A beautiful, beautiful delivery edge to Rahul. Nice catch, actually. But yeah, I mean, how critical, I guess, is Bumrah to Team India's World Cup chances and ODI form in general? And you say, why, if you're so reliant on one player, then maybe you're not a top team, and there's merit to that. But gosh, it just feels like this is a different attack with Bumrah in it, right?
Oh yeah, it is. He's the one who picked up the first wicket. Of course, we'll talk about Siraj, but the fact that we're talking about the guy that took one wicket
Yeah, third
before we
ball of
talk
the
about the
match
guy
is what
that
I'm
took
saying, and then we'll get to the
exactly
rest of
six
it. But
wickets is
yeah,
insane. But he looks like a different attack. We look like a different team because he brings that intensity, that skill, that pace, I mean, that class up front, right? Which I'm not saying we were missing because obviously we've got the likes of Shami and you've got likes of Siraj. Prasid got a game as well. He did pretty well against Bangladesh. But Bumrah is a notch above all of these guys, right? He's been the leader of the attack. He's been around for a while. He was out with injury, and you just saw like when the big game turned up, the big player turned up, and you need that. I mean, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one wicket, right? Or one step. But 10 wickets
begins
start. You
with
need to
one.
start. the procession begins with one, and uh, Bumrah took the first one and then handed over to his opening partner.
Yeah, I'm not sure the journey of 10 wickets begins with one wicket will be a quote that people say long after you're gone, DJ.
Quotable quote.
But I appreciate the attempt. Let's talk about where it went from there, right? You were saying like this was one of those kind of fourth over of the game, and you turn away, you blink an eyelid for I don't know, probably 8 minutes or so by the time you have changeovers, and for the first time in Indian cricket history, we could find men or women, all formats, a bowler, Mohammad Siraj, picked up 4 wickets in a single over. I mean, there's only with 6 balls, there's only a couple of mathematical ways you can pick up 4 wickets in an over without getting a hat trick, which is pretty fascinating, right? Like Malinga's done it before, but he got 4 on 4 balls or things like that. 4 wickets, first ball, third ball, fourth ball, and then the sixth ball. I mean, by the end, at the start of the fourth over, Sri Lanka's at 8 for 1, thinking, all right, as long as we, stick in, grind it out, you can get a decent total, right? 1 wicket early is not good, but not bad. At the end of it, Sri Lanka's 12 for 5, right? The match is basically over. I mean, 6 balls is what it took Mohammad Siraj to change this Asia Cup final.
Absolutely incredible. And I'm sure Varun's, unfortunately, he couldn't make it this week, but he was backing Shami over Siraj. So I'm glad that he isn't here, so we can poke some fun at him. But I mean, it was just that intensity, and we've been speaking about this, right, for some time. What Siraj has done is that he's developed an outswinger, which he didn't have over the last year or so. He's developed that, and he's taken wickets with that outswinger. He's grown as a bowler. Yes, Shami is a very, very skillful bowler. He's done very well over time for India, but that intensity and that skill that Siraj has brought to the opening burst with the new ball. He was brought in specifically, remember, for the purpose of picking up early wickets because India was struggling to do that. And this is just culminated in this absolutely incredible spell. I think he's equaled Ajanta Mendis's record for 6 wickets in the Asia Cup.
Mm-hmm.
He's now the only Indian I would expect who's ever taken 4 wickets in an international over, as I think you said as well.
Yeah.
And it was just top class, high class bowling. And even in that over, it's that exuberance that he brings to it. I don't know whether you watched that over yet, but there was one 4 in that over as well on the hat trick ball.
Yeah.
And Siraj ran after the ball himself.
Yeah.
And Kohli and these guys were just laughing because they're like, he was just like an excited puppy on the field. It was incredible to watch.
Yeah.
It's just like the joy of playing cricket, and Siraj brings that, right? He's an intense character.
I mean,
But
yeah, and
he
you
was-
think about that. But even though the match is, you have to believe, basically done and dusted. When later in the innings, when there was an edge that dropped just short of Kohli, I don't know if you saw, he was upset at Rahul for not going for the catch, and it's like, man, you've just taken 5 wickets. And this was before the 6th. But I mean, how I think the intensity you mentioned is exactly it. I will, now that you brought it up, go through some interesting fun stats, right? So Siraj's 6 for 21 was the 4th best ODI figures for India, right? Interesting that I noticed that nobody's ever taken more than 6 wickets, so that it was just 6 for 4 being the best ever ODI figures. Stuart Binny.
Stuart Little. What a player.
Siraj took 1,002 balls to get 50 ODI wickets, which is the second fastest in terms of balls bowled, right? I'm sure matches played, etc., is different, but I mean, when you start to think about that, India was only the second team who had all 10 wickets picked up to pace, which again is unheard of. Interestingly, the first time that happened was in this tournament, and the first time India lost all 10 wickets to spin was also in this tournament. So quite an interesting, against Sri Lanka. So quite an interesting kind of journey. And then from a win standpoint, right? You mentioned timing of the innings, but the whole chase was 129 balls, so 21.3 overs, which was the third shortest ODI that ended in a decisive result, right? And one of which, again, was Nepal against USA, and the other was Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe in 2001, right? So it's quite fascinating. And I'm sure there will be more records coming out. And if you have interesting stats, let us know. I did see one interesting stat, DJ, come into that chat, which if you're watching us live, definitely send them in. They said Bumrah didn't play for 2 matches in this Asia Cup, and the opponent scored above 200 in both those matches. I mean, so So let's wrap up this match, and then I want to talk about the rest of the Asia Cup, because it is quite fascinating that the highest totals against India were Nepal and Bangladesh actually won, and India seemed to dominate more against Pakistan and Sri Lanka, who are on paper the stronger sides. But let's wrap up that match. Anything else you'd say? Hardik came in, looked pretty good to clean up the tail, right? Even when you are 30 odd for 7, there's a chance somebody can grind it out and get 100 plus. So nice job cleaning up the tail, 50 for 10, and then Kishan walks out to open. What was the thought there? Just that this is a done deal. Let's give him some more ball.
It's just giving Rohit. I mean, Rohit's not going to gain anything from
Should we
scoring
then
30
have
runs.
sent Washi out to open?
That would have been nice, no? At least
Would
he
have
would
been a
have
good
got a gain
gesture.
in the whole tournament.
But I think it's a high risk, low reward type of scenario. Because if he made 25 and got the win, it's just nothing's coming of it. But if he got out,
Yeah.
then you're hurting him more. So that's the risk with doing that.
What,
For a guy who's
Ishan?
just
Kishan?
flown.
I don't think Kishan ever thinks about getting out. To be honest,
No, I'm
he had
talking
a
about
nice little
Sundar.
attitude.
If you
Yeah.
sent Sundar in
Oh,
for the
Sundar.
first
Yeah.
time, Kishan
That was
looked
never
good.
going to happen. Actually,
Nice little
yeah,
cameo
that was never
from
going to happen.
yeah.
No, but it was good. What I wanted to actually, your stat was very interesting. That there's been games where all 10 wickets have been picked up by pace, and all 10 wickets picked up by spin. It just shows you the varied nature of the pitches that the batters have had to contend in this Asia Cup. Apart from the final, right? A lot of games were very close contests. They were closely contested. The Pakistan Sri Lanka game, which we'll come to, very close contest. The India Bangladesh game went to the last over as well. So yeah, I mean, I think
So since you
it
mentioned that, I'll
made
cut in for 1 second.
Mhm.
All of the games that had reserve days were one-sided, which were basically the India Pakistan and this final, and all the others that were like in some way, shape, or form rain affected or risk of rain affected had no reserve days, and they became nail biters.
interesting.
It's been a
Okay,
bizarre Asia Cup
wow.
in that sense.
Yeah, it was, but I mean, what a win! And it's given, I think, Indian cricket fans a bit of a boost before the World Cup that's coming up. And
Yeah.
we should probably talk about what it means as an Indian cricket fan to finally win a multilateral tournament.
Yeah, I think your point is interesting because I, woke up in the morning, caught the end of the game, and it's like, okay, well, because it was so one-sided that feeling is a little underwhelming. And then we discussed, hey, let's wear our jerseys. It is pretty special, right? Going into an ODI World Cup. I think Harsha Bhogle or somebody tweeted that, yes, we have 3 more games against Australia, but you do kind of feel like, coming into the Asia Cup, there was a lot of questions and more negativity, and whether it's right or wrong, whether we just have short memories in as Indian fans, but winning a multilateral tournament with some very, very, very good sides, including the number 1 ODI side in the world, right before the World Cup has to give you a little bit more confidence, just a little more optimism, right, DJ?
Yeah, I mean, they are very good sides. Pakistan is the world's number 1 side. What that actually means in the terms of rankings, I don't know. Sri Lanka had a massive streak of winning a lot of ODI games. I think they did extremely well to get to the final. It shows you can't underestimate any side. And I'm sure we'll come to it. But like Sri Lanka looked like a bit of a banana peel for some of the bigger sides when the World Cup will come around with their spinners. I think Theekshana may have some injury issues, if I'm not wrong. So he didn't play today either. But it's yes, okay. Bangladesh aren't. Uh, Maybe India had a lot of changes and they got beaten by Bangladesh. But again, Bangladesh are not the kind of team that you can take lightly on any given day. In fact,
Mhm.
I mean, realistically, we put out of the 2007 World Cup, uh, Super 8 or whatever the next stage, Super 6 stage, because we lost to Bangladesh, right?
Yeah.
So this is not a small tournament to win. It is what I'm trying to, I think, get at. Yes, Nepal aren't the strongest team, but the other teams in this tournament, including Afghanistan, are all teams that can beat big teams on their day, right? So the fact that it was closely contested, the fact that a lot of good performances came from the Indian players, the bowlers, the batters, everyone has taken wickets, everyone has scored runs. I think this has been a very important preparatory tournament for the World Cup for Team India, and I'm actually very glad. Whether or not we won or lost, I think it's nice to have won, and nice to have won in that way. It didn't tell us very much today what would have happened if Sri Lanka did well, but I think the preparation is key, and that's what I've liked in this tournament.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well said. And I'm actually starting to feel like I was just sort of like, okay, cool, 1 by 10 wickets in 6 overs, 6.1 over chases. But you're absolutely right. These are top quality sides, and it is a big, big, big trophy.
Yeah,
So
and Ramkumar Iyengar on YouTube saying it's only the third 10 wicket win in an ODI finals ever.
wow. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was a thumping, right? I mean, after 228 run win against Pakistan earlier in this tournament, just incredible. So, DJ, before we were planning to talk the rest of the matches and the fascinating, you call it semi-final between Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and a few other things. Before we do that, you mentioned it being a successful preparatory tournament for Team India. Let's talk through just quickly, kind of how you felt about most of our what seems to be an almost settled playing 11. And so let's just go through from a batter standpoint, kind of key highlights. I would say I would start with saying obviously the both openers, right? Nice to see Gill get a century under his belt. And then Rohit, other than the duck obviously against Bangladesh, I think he got a 50 in every other game that he batted. And so thoughts on the kind of top 4 or 5 batters.
Yeah, great to see the openers do what they do best. I think they went after the bowling as well, and that was good to see. I was a bit disappointed how Gill got out against Bangladesh. It would have been
Mhm.
that's the step between Gill and Kohli, right?
Mhm.
That's the difference. You wouldn't have seen a Kohli throw it away when he needed like 75 of 60 ish. He would have been there at the end. And so that's one thing Gill will learn from that, scoring
Mhm.
runs in a losing cause. But can't fault him. He had a fantastic tournament. I'm sure he'll tell me the stats, and he must be averaging something over 75 or 80 or something like that. Despite what was a slow start against Pakistan in the first game where he opened.
75.5 average in the tournament, strike rate of 93.5, and obviously the highest run scorer with 302. So, yeah,
Too easy. Too easy. King
great.
Kohli, what a knock by him against Pakistan. Come with the hour, come with the man. But for us, I think what is most interesting in this tournament has been, Ashwin, before this tournament started, Iyer was a lock on that number 4 position. A lock.
Yeah.
So tell me about Iyer.
Yeah. So I
What's
guess the
happening?
first question is why are we not more forthcoming about real injury discussions, selection decisions, etc. Right? It's clearly not a niggle in the nets if you've missed 3 games since, right? Okay, maybe he missed one from it, and then they made a strategic decision. Like there's more to it, right? Ishan is being backed. We've talked about it before. Wicket keeping option, lefty, slightly more aggressive type of player, and I think it's fine. I just worry that I don't like the lack of clarity on the match. Like I have no visibility right now if Shreyas Iyer missed the last couple of games of the Asia Cup because of injury or because of selection. And that just leaves more questions going into the World Cup. So very excited to see, you know, call it 4 and 5 somewhere, Kishan and Rahul, and how they're showing how they showed up this Asia Cup. It was good. I would say this was the one of the biggest winners overall was KL Rahul. He had a good run and got to don the gloves and almost cemented his place. But I'm a little frustrated by that lack of clarity. I don't know if you see it differently.
Yeah, so for that first game against Australia, um, and not the World Cup, do you see Iyer coming back in if he's fully fit? Or are we going to say, we're now going to draw a line under this, guys? It's KL at 4 and it's Kishan at 5. And Kishan at 5, not only because of the great knock that he played against Pakistan. Let's never forget that. That was
Mhm.
a knock back against the wall, fantastic, counter-attacking, brilliant, showed maturity. And Iyer got to a start, but got out against Pakistan
Mhm.
when that was his time to cash in. So is it a bit harsh to be saying that Iyer's out and Kishan's in, or is Kishan winning that debate because of his left-handedness, which we lack in that top 4-5?
Yeah, I think the left-handedness is a big factor. I think also this close to a World Cup, form matters. I'm a big believer in form by format, right? And so saying, see, actually, there's nothing like putting up ODI runs in a position at or close to where you're going to bat. That's the surest thing. So yes, Iyer might look good in the nets, might have had a good run in Test cricket in India recently, things like that. Ultimately, I think the recency will help. So if Ishan doesn't have 3 horrendous matches against Australia, I think he he cements his spot. I think if he has, low single digit scores in two of the matches, then the questions start flying again. If the first one is at Mohali, which is different, very different service to what they've just dealt with in Sri Lanka. So that's going to be really interesting for me. But today, I don't see them changing the top seven
So the 4-5,
as you go
4-5
into the
is
Australia.
Rahul and Kishan for you. And that brings me to
Yeah.
one more question I had, which was, do you see them being flexible with the gloves as well? See, if we bat first, and Rahul's been at the crease for 35 overs, and Kishan didn't have to do a job like he didn't have to do against Pakistan, perhaps give Kishan the gloves and relieve Rahul of those duties.
Yeah, I don't think it's ideal, right? I think when you look at Test cricket, you start to say, okay, the batter has to be a lower order player for the most part. Just sorry, the keeper has to be a lower order batter because of how physically taxing it is. In ODIs, we've had enough great examples of wicketkeepers being opening batsmen and often batting long days and having to keep as well. Now, if there's a specific niggle or a fitness concern or something, I just don't think it's ideal for your bowlers to not know who's going to be wearing the gloves. And they're both good keepers. I'd say Kishan's probably technically higher up than Rahul, but I think when you make a decision, you back it. And so I think Kishan is, if he is in the side, to try to be next in line, right? After this World Cup, who knows what Rahul's future is going to be in ODI cricket, etc. So I think that they want to keep him around. But I don't. To answer your question, I don't expect in the first match it's Rahul, the second it's Kishan, the third it's Rahul. Especially for your spinners and stuff, it's very very
Hmm.
difficult to be changing that up.
Interesting. And then the other question I had was, we've talked a lot about this, Ashwin. Surya Kumar Yadav played one game
Hmm.
in this tournament, got bold sweeping
Hmm.
after he had a few nice sweet shots. Is this closing the door on Surya?
I mean,
Do
I
you
don't
think?
think it is, right? I do think both Shreyas and Surya. Listen. World Cups are long, man. 9 matches, and or up to, I guess, but nine matches. Injuries will happen, fatigue will happen. So I think Iyer and Sky are being kept very close because they're those both kind of utility players. You can see him play at 3 if you need to. You can see him both play at 6 if you needed it, and that option will be there. So do they start the World Cup in a batting top 7 of full fitness? Neither of them probably does for me. I don't see it, but absolutely, there's a high chance they'll get games. Just it's a long World Cup. This happens. We've seen it.
And last question before I know you
Yeah,
want to move to the rest of it.
yeah.
It's just so interesting. I mean, of course, the game itself was great. We all enjoyed that 1.5 hours of the game that took place. But uh, Washington Sundar, and Varun and I, when we discussed, I thought that Ashwin should be getting a look into that side, perhaps as a off spinner that can bat. And talking about off spinners that can bat, and you saw the value that an Akshar brought to the game against Bangladesh, where he got 42, nearly took India home. Is there a world, and now Akshar's got a quadriceps injury, as the chat is also pointing out.
Hmm.
Is there a world where, of course, you can change the squad? I think this September 28th is the cutoff. You need ICC technical committee approval, but the squad can change to then.
Listen, Jack Shah
Freely.
will get whatever approval he needs, to be clear. So I'm not worried
Oh, he has to
about
give the
ICC.
approval himself. So I mean,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and sorry, the jokes apart.
Yeah.
Do you see a world where, given Akshar's injury, we draft? Shardul did okay. I don't know what his stats were, Ashwin, but he did okay. He fluffed his lines against Bangladesh, hitting the
Yeah,
ball to
I actually think
square leg.
Shardul was a disappointment with the bat, but was absolutely fine with the ball, right? Like
Yeah.
he picked up 5 wickets
And
in the
Akshar was the
tournament.
opposite because he was
Mhm.
he wasn't great with the ball and he was okay with the bat. But with his injury, and you need a spinning all rounder, is there a better replacement? If you're not looking at Ravichandran Ashwin, I guess that's the caveat, than Washington Sundar. And is he got a real shot at getting in?
Yeah, for me, I will put aside Ashwin for now because I actually think the more you think about it, just a smart bowler like him could easily be your number 8 player. Ash and Kuldeep with Jadeja rounding it out as the 3 spinners in on pitches where it justifies. But we're not talking that. I think Washington Sundar, if Akshar is injured, I think it is Sundar and I think it is Shardul, and I think they're going to do exactly what they did in this series, which is on the pitches that support pace more. Give yourself Shardul to give yourself with Hardik 4 quick options. On the pitches that spin more, give yourself Akshar to have up to 30 overs of spin,
Mm,
right? So I think that's the move now. It's not Akshar. The Sundar is the closest quote like for like
yeah.
type of player. But for me, I don't think Shardul did himself any harm from a
Mm,
bowling standpoint. I do think he hurt his image a little with the bat, which just became like, is he really an eight or is he a good number nine? And if he's a good
mm,
number nine, does that enough to get him into the side for his batting? But he was good with the ball. So this is where Shardul gets a little stuck. He was not as good, obviously, as a Bumrah, nowhere close as a Siraj. And then you have to say third on that list from a bowling standpoint is going to be Shami if you need a third full time quick.
mm,
And so this is where Shardul didn't do himself any favors, but
yeah.
I do think he's going to be close, and I think that's going to be an 11 that evolves a little bit.
Yeah, and when you saw how when we played the three spinners against Sri Lanka in the Super 4 game, which I don't think we've spoken about on the pod yet, so maybe we should cover that as well. I've just
Yeah,
realized
yeah.
because we only spoke India Pakistan. This was the third day running that India was playing, and that was a close game as well.
Hmm.
But that's the value when you have a third spinner who can bat, and then you got 30 overs of spin, as you say, plus two quicks and Pandya. So
100% agreed. DJ, let's take a quick break here. We'll come back, talk about the rest of our games. But yeah, congratulations to Team India for winning the Asia Cup. And clearly, you could sense in our voices and our energy that it's very exciting. And DJ is reminding me to tell you to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you're on YouTube. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We are live on the cusp of, or on the at the end of the Asia Cup win. Very, very exciting. Lots of energy. DJ, let's take a few minutes and chat through some of the other games that happened this past week since we last connected. So I'll go in reverse order. Let's start with the semifinal, right? We don't often talk too much about games on this podcast that are not India, but this was exciting, right? I'm calling it a semifinal. It wasn't technically that, but basically, winner would have gone through, loser would have not, right? Pakistan comes out, makes 252 in their 42 overs they got allocated. It started as a 45 over game, became 42. Decent total on the ground. Like nothing, nothing too special, but a good knock by Rizwan there near the end. I mean, he batted at over 100 strike rate on a tough pitch to get this team over 252. Then you start seeing Sri Lanka's chase, and you realized, they were in it for quite a while. Then in the kind of mid 30 overs, 8 or 9 overs left, they lost a couple quick wickets. But what I want to talk about is kind of the end of that game, right? So let's first start by saying you had a debutant bowler, and we'll talk separately in the lead up to the World Cup about why Naseem Shah, why he's playing because of Naseem's injury. It's very disappointing. But 3 overs left, right? I think there were 3 overs left, and he had 1 over from Shaheen potentially, one from Iftikhar potentially, but only one of them could have bowled 9 because of the way the math works in a rain curtailed game. And as you now know, Zaman Khan got the over the third last over. He gave 8 runs, pretty decent over. Shaheen got the penultimate over, gave 4 runs and picked up 2 wickets. Outstanding, outstanding over. And then in that last over, you gave it to a debutant again. And again, lots to get into, and I'll talk that run in particular. But thoughts on the captaincy there? Babar has come under fire sometimes about his captaincy. Well, any thoughts on giving the debutant the last over?
see, he had to bowl one of them, right? One of the three.
Mm-hmm.
And the wisdom these days is that, like with T20, you give your best bowler the 19th over,
Mm-hmm.
not the 20th over, because if the 19th goes for
The
too
match could be
many,
over.
you're
Yeah.
not going to have. And so it's more of a, if you're taking the gamble, you trust the better bowler to leave enough runs for the less experienced or less skillful bowler in the final over, because the theory being the pressure will add runs to that total, right? So that's, I mean, I can't fault the thinking there. It's pretty, it's a hard one. I mean, what he could have, I don't know what he could have done, was maybe give him the 48th over, but yeah.
So let's talk about this then. 3 balls left, 6 runs to win, and the basically the not good batsman, the bowler Pramod Madhusan, is on strike. Right? This is fascinating, and we're gonna go long over time because I'm talking this. But he swings at the ball, misses it. Ball goes to the keeper. Asalanka, who's obviously the established batter, starts running. Pramod Madhusan stays in his crease, doesn't leave the crease, and I'm sitting there thinking, what is he doing? You just run. You absolutely have to get to the other end, give the batter more balls to face. And only when Sri Lanka basically gets in the crease, then he sets off. Eventually, the keeper needs to throw it to the bowler. Bowler hits the stumps. He gets run out. But later at least, I didn't realize it was happening. I was watching this one live. You realize he stayed in the crease because if the keeper takes one glove off, like Amos did for a long time, shies at the stumps, and then Sri Lanka could have been run out. This way, as long as he's in the crease, nobody's getting run out at the batter's hand. So he did end up sacrificing himself, and I'm not sure if audio does a good enough job explaining this.
But
Go
it's
check out the
genius.
pictures.
You have
But
to
it's
watch the
so
video.
good.
It's
So good.
It's Ash level thinking under pressure. It really is. Because at one point he's hitting this.
Yeah, and Ash, I think, tweeted about it, and I mean, yeah, it's
such
so
an
good.
Ashwin thing.
I mean, he also tweeted separately about he should have gone for Pakistan should have gone for the bowling and non-strikers run out, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, but you can see why Pakistan would have wanted to get the better batter
Yeah,
out, right? That's the
absolutely.
game there. But
Yeah.
it's just absolutely brilliant thinking under pressure, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong with it at all. In fact, it
No,
reminded me a
it's
little
very
bit of when
I'm-
Kieran
yeah.
Pollard ran a short run to get back on strike. Because he just ran
Yeah,
over
yeah,
half
yeah.
and then he went back.
So
You
they
could say
got
that's
one
probably
run.
more sharp practice, and I don't think it's allowed anymore by the rules.
Yeah,
But
this is completely
this
legal
is
and just
genius.
smart. Completely legal.
This reminds me of a lot of those TikToks that go around, right? When the batters both stay in the crease,
Yeah.
and then they keep chucking it from one end to the other. It's just comedy value, but it was
No.
it got them into the final
It
because
did.
the next
It
one
did.
went for 4, and then
And then Sri Lanka, calm, cool as a cucumber, missed his 50 by run, but got 2 on the final ball, and in front of a home crowd, needed 6 off 2, and he got it done. So
yeah.
very, very exciting.
And a moment for the home crowd. I mean, I think Sri Lankan crowds have been incredible.
Yeah.
It shows you how much love there is for the game there, even though their team hasn't been doing well at the international level. Even some of the pictures today, quite sad to see, obviously, but it was dramatic, right? And it was great to see Sri Lankan crowds.
Listen, it's tough losing in front of a home crowd, and especially by a large margin. But they did great, and also we'd be remiss if we didn't shout out the ground staff and nice gestures coming from the Asian Cricket Council, some bonus money, etc. But what a series it's been for those trying to manage how we get to play cricket around the rain. DJ, let's quickly talk about India versus Sri Lanka, which you mentioned, but happened earlier, where India got all out for 213, still managed to win. But yeah, I mean, I guess this is one of the few matches that happens in our sport where the player of the match is from the losing side. And we talked about him. I just followed Ravi Ashwin, who talked about Tawheed Ridhoy from Bangladesh and Dunit Walalage from Sri Lanka, and both had absolutely magnificent Asia Cup. So that guy, I mean, I'm excited for Ash has a long career in front of him, I hope, but I'm excited for the day when we get to see more of his analytics and his skills. But yeah, talk to me about that. Rohit had a nice 50, decent knocks from Kishan and Rahul in the middle order, but 213 all out, starting to ask those questions again. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the opening partnership? Like 90 something?
80 for 1.
An absolute fire. Like
80 for 1 in 11 overs before. 80 for 0 in 11 overs before Gill got out. Yeah.
And then the left arm spinner then got into the act, and he got Kohli, he got Rohit, he got Gill. And Rahul. You're like, okay. Yeah, then he got
and
Rahul.
Hardik.
And
I mean,
that's not a bad fifer, right?
Come on. Like, that is amazing.
As fifers go. So he was brilliant. But on this again, what I want to point out is Akshar's knock. How crucial was Akshar's knock in taking us from like 108? When did the 9th wicket fall, Ashwin? Sorry, I should have the scorecard ahead.
Yeah, no, it's 186 for 9.
Yeah.
Right? And ably supported by Siraj. They got the extra 27 odd runs. Yeah. Oh, DJ, you still there? I think we lost you for a
I don't know what's happened. Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely right. 186 for 9 before we got to 213 all out. I mean, critical runs.
Incredible. And that, I think, again, shows you the value of having someone who can bat at number 8 and 9. And those were crucial runs in the out. Yes, we won. I think Sri Lanka only got 172. But chasing 186 is very different from chasing 212. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that
So,
lengthening that batting lineup adds value in these low scoring games. It doesn't add
so what
value
do
when you've
you
got
do?
380 on.
So, if this quadriceps injury is real, what do you do for that number 8-9 spot? Does Shardul come back in? Do you give Washi all three ODIs against Australia to see if he's able to play at this level? Like, what do you do in absence of Akshar? I mean, Akshar has kind of proven himself as an indispensable number 8, even if he needed slightly better series with the ball.
I want to have a look at Washi, and I
Hmm.
would like to have a look at Ravi Chandran Ashwin as well. I think Tilak is now out for the count. He left a straight one basically,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it was done.
tough.
But I want to have a look at Ashwin and see whether he's fit enough, how he's feeling. I mean, it's opened the door, right? This quadriceps injury for
Yeah.
someone to come in, because the issue is that only leaves Jadeja, and Jadeja didn't have a great tournament with the bat. He took wickets with the ball. He was
Hmm.
his usual great self in the field. But if anything happens to Jadeja now, you're
Yeah,
possibly down two all spinning all rounders, right? So who
yeah,
are your two best options then? It's got to be Ashwin and Washi, provided they're
yeah,
both fit.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that is a selection job which should be done now. I think this has opened the door. It's made it necessary for us to look at, or maybe even someone like I don't know, Rian Parag. He's not going to give you like a full
And I
spell,
don't
but
think you're going that out of left field this close to the
Tilak,
World Cup. I think,
Tilak Verma, but he bats too
yeah,
high, right? So
so
he,
it's gonna be a fascinating one. It'll be very interesting. I mean, there's a world if you do want to slot in Tilak and rely on him for overs, which again I don't expect to happen for the ODI World Cup, but maybe for the future. Then you play a Hardik at 7, a Jadeja at 8, and that way you have more bowling over options in the top. Which, by the way, a team like Sri Lanka has. They just seem to keep churning out these batsmen who can bowl anywhere from 3 to 8 overs, like Team India did in the early to mid 2000s. All right,
yeah, and
DJ, I
how
have to
good was
wrap this up. I know.
the left-hander? Incredible batter.
Yeah, unbelievable. All right, I have to wrap this up with we talked about the batters, we talked about the all rounders, we talked about the quicks. You and I always get emotional talking about this guy, but when the Player of the Series award gets announced and you see that it goes to Kuldeep Yadav, I mean, 9 wickets, average of 11.44. I mean, his stats were 9 for 103 in 28 overs across the whole series. You would absolutely kill for those kinds of numbers, right? How great is it? How much stronger does this India team become? I said this about Bumrah, but Bumrah and Kuldeep, it's a completely different side with the two of them in and in form, right?
Yeah, brilliant. Just a brilliant comeback. Looked happy in the team, and he's being backed by his skipper. So every time he comes into bowl, he's got slips, he's got attacking fielders. The skipper is backing him to take wickets with the top order in the middle overs and then wrap up the tail. So there's no better vote for of confidence for a player like him. So very happy watching Kuldeep back in form and back in the Indian fold. Really, really pleasing. Seems like
Yeah,
just a nice guy.
yeah. Couldn't agree more. DJ, that brings us to a wrap. After a scintillating Asia Cup, there's a couple more ODIs happening right now. Actually, Australia is playing South Africa, and I've just refreshed the score to see what's going on, and I realized Marco Janssen has picked up a fiver. And so, after two big wins in the first two matches of this ODI series, Australia looks like they might lose this series 3-2, which is fascinating. And South Africa hadn't necessarily been a side I was starting to think about in a huge way as semi-final final contenders, but gosh, they look good. Shout out to Heinrich Klaassen for the unbelievable knock. Very classy.
Insane knock. I was watching
Yeah.
that and he got like 174, and they looked
Mhm.
like they were going to get 250 and they ended with 400 plus. It's mad.
400. Yeah. Did you see Gibbs tweeted that this was its fourth, South Africa's fourth 400 plus total, but only one of them has been chasing, which is pretty good.
Oh, true. I also watched, by
Herschel
the way, I was
Gibbs,
at
what
the Oval to watch Ben Stokes score 182.
England?
That's pretty good.
I mean, we should save that discussion for our World Cup previews because my gosh, that guy is just made of something different. But we're going to wrap this up here. Great Asia Cup. India plays Australia at Mohali, Indore, and Rajkot. I think starting in 5 days' time, And before you know it, we will be here for the World Cup. For those of you all listening, we have some really fun stuff planned for the World Cup. We're going to do some fun previews. We'll do live reaction episodes at the end of India's midweek games. We'll do review episodes similar to these ones that you're used to. We are super, super excited. The ODI World Cup comes with mixed feelings because of the, all the lack of interest in ODI formats between the 4 years. But man, we are pumped for this World Cup, and the Asia Cup victory makes it all that much sweeter. DJ, thank you for joining me. It's always a fun day to celebrate India series wins. We will be back next week to talk. I guess it's about time to start talking World Cup previews. So we'll start doing that next week. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations, Team India. Write into us at One Tip One Hand on all the socials, and we'll be back in a week's time. This has been the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.